Hi, I'm Adriana, trauma-informed yoga teacher and physiotherapist. And the practice I have for you today is all about the hips. The hips can be an area in our body where we feel a lot of stiffness and a lot of tightness. So this practice will guide us through many forms to help with those feelings. It might be helpful to have a blanket or a block if you have those handy at home. I'll be starting in bound angle today. So if you would like to join me there, I'll be placing my feet together and my knees out. And as always, there are many options to each of the forms that we do today. For this one, it may be helpful to sit on a blanket or perhaps sit on a block or a bolster if you have those handy. I invite you to join me whenever you are ready in this form. Knowing that as we're working through the hips, many different sensations may come up today. Always remember that you can skip any forms you'd like. You can change forms. You can rest. Please choose what works best for you and your body. And if you're with me in bound angle, the feet together, I'll show a few different variations of the form today. So one would be to bring your body forward and place your hands wrapped around your toes. And gently think about pushing your knees down towards the ground. Another variation would be to actually take your elbows and place them on your knees as you lean forward and gently push those knees down with the elbows. You might decide to lean more forward, bringing the chest down towards the floor as far as feels comfortable. There are many different ways that you can sit in this form, so choose the one that works for you today. Perhaps noticing some sensations throughout the hips and throughout the glutes as we're in this form. Maybe taking time to recognize those sensations. If it doesn't feel good to focus on them, you can focus somewhere else on the body, somewhere that feels perhaps neutral or good today. We'll spend a few more breaths here. Remembering that you can come out at any time. If you're still with me in bound angle, I invite you to make your way out of that form. And we'll move into a 90-90 form. So from here, keeping your left leg in a similar variation that it is, just moving it slightly more forward on the mat. And then you can take the right leg and bring it behind you. So both the angles of this are 90 degrees. We have 90 degrees from the hip to the knee, and then from this hip down to this knee. Now, if this doesn't feel good, you can make these degrees or these angles wider or more inwards, finding a way that feels best for you. And from here, there are many different arm variations we can take. We can take the left hand and place it beside the left thigh. Bring the right arm and lean it forward over the left leg. You may decide to switch the angle a little bit and bring the right arm more forward or perhaps even more over the left leg. So you can play around with the arm positionings here. Find a way that feels best for your hips today. And we'll spend a few breaths there. With this form, you may feel sensations through both hips depending on the angle that you're at. Our hips are a ball and socket joint, meaning they have more degrees of freedom, more areas that they can move in than a few other joints in the body. So when we're working through today's practice, we'll go through many different forms that focus on different areas of the hips. Taking one more breath with me if you're still here on this side. On the next exhale, bringing the arms back up and switching over to the other side if that's comfortable for you. So this time the right leg is forward and the left leg is back. Once again, you can always play around with the angles of the legs. Find the variation that works best for your body. If your hips are feeling uncomfortable or tight here, once again, you can always be on a blanket or a bolster. And choosing the arm variations on this side that work for you. What worked the other way might not work this way, and that's totally okay. Our bodies are always changing and always different. Try not to judge one side for being different than the other. Taking a few more breaths in whatever variation you're in here. And on your next exhale, making your way onto all fours, we'll work through some tripod movements here. If you would like, you can place blankets under the knees or under the wrists. From this form, I invite you to bring your left foot up on the outside, well, on the edge of the left side of your mat, with your hands on the inside of that left foot. Perhaps taking a few breaths here to notice any sensations through that left hip. Maybe dropping the chin to the chest, making some movements with the neck. If you feel comfortable focusing on the breath, I invite you to take 3 deep breaths here, maybe noticing your stomach leaning against that left hip. Last big breath. Moving through a variation to work on the hamstrings, the back of the legs here. I invite you to lean your hips back so that your left knee straightens, and you can lean back as far as feels comfortable for that left leg. Maybe noticing pulling through that back of the left leg here. The next breath, coming back up to tripod, and you can move with your breath to go into the different variations here. So on an inhale, straightening that left knee. On an exhale, bending it. Inhale, straighten the knee. Exhale, bend. Working through this on your own time. If it doesn't feel good to straighten and bend, you can always choose the form that feels best and stay there. Three more times. Last inhale, straightening. Exhale, coming back to tripod. Moving into a low lunge if that's in your practice today. So you can take your hands and push up onto that left knee, bringing the body upwards. With the low lunge, there's a few different forms you can take. You can choose to bring that left foot a little more forward and lean the body a little more forward, getting more of a sensation through that right hip at the back. You might choose to stay more upright with the knee right over that foot. Think about bringing a string all the way up through your head. Once again, maybe noticing sensation through that right hip here. If there's any other variation that works better for you, choose that one. Two more breaths. When you're ready, coming down to tripod again on this side, and we're going to switch sides. So we'll take that left foot, we'll bring it back behind us, and we'll switch so that the right foot is up on the edge of the mat. The hands are on the inside of that right foot. Just as we did on the other side, taking 3 deep breaths here. Once again, maybe noticing as that stomach and the chest lean against that right leg. Perhaps bringing in some neck movements here. And working with the breath to bend and straighten the right leg here. On an inhale, bringing that right knee straight. On an exhale, bringing it forward. On an inhale, straightening the knee once again. Exhale, bringing it forward. Working through a few more at your own pace. Perhaps noticing different sensations on this leg than the other one. Or maybe they feel the same. If you don't notice any sensations at all, that is okay. Working through 2 more bending and straightenings. Making your way into a low lunge on this side, using the hands if that feels good on the right knee. Once again, maybe deciding to lean that right knee over the right foot, getting a different sensation through the left leg. Or perhaps being a little more upright, tucking the tailbone under, thinking of a string coming up through the top of our head. Both providing some sensation in the left hip. Couple more breaths here. Making your way up to standing, and you can choose to do that in whatever way works for you. We'll be working into a standing straddle. So you can take your legs as wide as feels comfortable here. Couple different variations to work through. You can stay standing like this if this works for you. Another option would be to take the arms and reach them down forward as far as you would like. If you have a block or a bolster, you can always use that to rest the hands. And if it feels better for you, you can take the hands and bring them right down to the ground. Wherever you are is the best place to be. Maybe bringing a gentle bend to both knees so we're not locking them. And you might decide to bring both your arms over to one side. You may decide to rock them over the other way. You can play around with where your hands are in this form, choosing the option that is working best for you. Spending 3 more breaths in this standing straddle. You might decide to cross the elbows, bringing the body even lower if that's in your practice. And if it's not, don't worry. Doesn't need to be. Last inhale and exhale if you're still with me. Making your way back up to standing, you may decide to use a block or place your hands on your low back as you come back up, bringing a gentle bend into the knees. We'll work through a triangle next. So you might decide to bring the legs a little bit closer together. With triangle, the right foot is going to face the end of your mat. Then we're going to think about bringing the hips backwards. That left foot is going to face the other way. So as the hip goes backwards, a couple different variations with the arms. You can stay standing if you would like. Another option would be to take that right hand and place it on a block next to the right foot. Or maybe you decide to bring your hand on the right ankle or down to the floor. Choosing the option that works best for you today. You might take the left hand and bring it up, reaching the opposite direction. Or maybe you rest it on the left hip. Spending 2 more breaths in whatever variation you've chosen. Making your way up to standing. You can bend that front knee, perhaps place your hand on it to help you up. Take a moment. We'll be moving into triangle on the other side, so you can pivot your body the other way. So now that left foot is facing the end of your mat, that right foot is facing the long lengthwise. Hips can push back towards that right foot. And then the many different variations you can take with the hands, just as on the other side. Knowing that every body is different, everyone holds tension in different areas, and so each form may feel different for the hips and different for the body. Taking 2 more breaths in whatever variation you're in. In your own time, we're going to make our way into pigeon. So with this, you can make your way onto your hands and knees to start, getting down there in whatever feels comfortable. From here, bringing the right leg back behind you, taking the left knee, placing it behind the left foot, the left knee behind the left hand. Behind the left foot would be a little wild. Taking that left foot behind the right hand. Many variations from here. So if you have a block or a blanket or a bolster, it might feel good to place that underneath that left foot hip. Getting my anatomy all mixed up. Another option might be to take a blanket. Place a blanket either underneath your elbows for some more upper arm. Know that pigeon is a form where a lot of different sensations can arise. And so just know that if anything is coming up, it's okay. Trust that you have the capacity to work through anything that arises in the moment. Perhaps remind yourself or give yourself an affirmation that in this moment you are safe. You can always come out of the form. Taking a few more breaths. Maybe sinking deeper into the movement. Wherever you are in the form, I invite you to come out and switch over to the other side. This time taking the left leg back straight. The right knee is going to go behind the right hand, right foot behind the left hand. You can place a block underneath the hips or a blanket. Once again, spending a few breaths on this side. Maybe relaxing the body even further. Unclenching the jaw, relaxing the face. And if it doesn't feel safe to fully relax, try and find somewhere in the body that does feel okay to let go. Two more breaths on this side. Whenever you are ready, coming out of this form, making your way onto your back. We'll do a couple more forms on our back before ending the practice. And on our back, the first form is going to be a variation of the pigeon that we just did. There's a couple different ways you can do this. The first way would be to take the left knee, left foot, place it on the right knee, And gently bring that left knee towards the ground. If you would like a little more sensation here, you can lift the right leg up. If you'd like a little more sensation or even a little more support, you can take your hands and clasp them behind the right upper leg. Spending a couple breaths here. Knowing that the sensation you're feeling right now won't last forever. Once you place that leg down, it will go away. You have the choice to come out whenever you would like. One more inhale wherever you are. On the exhale, if your hands are clasped, you can unclasp them, gently bringing that right leg down. Switching to the other side, placing that left foot on the ground, taking the right foot on the top of the left knee, and gently bringing that right knee down to the ground. For a different sensation, bringing that left leg up off the ground and maybe clasping the hands behind the left leg. Spending a little bit of time on this side, a couple breaths. Two more breaths if you're still with me here. On the next exhale, unclasping the hands if they're clasped, lowering that left leg, taking that right leg and bringing it down to rest next to the left leg. So your feet are on the mat, your knees are bent. The last form I have for today is bringing the knees back and forth in what I call windshield wipers. So taking both knees, dropping them over to one side as far as feels comfortable. Maybe noticing sensation through that right hip as you drop the knees. Coming back up and going over to the other side as far as feels comfortable. In your own time, at your own pace, working your way back and forth between both sides. Might feel nice to rest for a moment or two on one side if the sensation feels good there, if it's a good stretch. Couple more times, back and forth. And if there's any other forms or movements that your body is calling out to you, feel free to do those now. If not, you can join me whenever you're ready in your final resting form, whatever that looks like. If you need pillows or blankets, grab those now. If you feel called to, I invite you to acknowledge yourself. That you've done a practice that might have focused on some uncomfortable sensations. And that regardless of how much you followed along or if you decided to rest here and listen, you showed up. Thank you so much for practicing with me today.